Hey, Run Try Bike community. Welcome to the Fireside Chat on the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network by Run Try Bike. We have Steven Epifano with us today. Steven is an ultra runner that qualified that has run Cocodona 3 times. He is also a UESCA-certified coach as well as a host of the Blueprint to Ultra podcast. And if his name sounds familiar to you, that is because he has written for us, and you can find those articles under the coaches tips on the runtrymag.com website. Beyond being an ultra runner, Steve is also a father, son, brother, and friend who returned to running after a health scare in 2013. In 2018, he made a choice to get into running further, which has taken him from 5K to a 250 miler. 3 years after that, he began his coaching career with the goal of helping athletes find the love of running and belief in themselves. Before we bring Steve to the show, let me remind you that this show, the Fireside Chat, is one of 9 shows on the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network on your favorite podcast platforms. I'm sure when you visit there, you will find one or all of them to your liking. So let's bring Steven from the back room to talk to him about his upcoming journeys in the world of trail and ultra running. Hey, Steve, how are you doing today, buddy? Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, not too bad. Thank you for having me.
You're a podcast host. Is one of the most unnatural things to do is say, "Hey, Steve, good to see you again. Nice to thank you for joining me." It's just so unnatural.
Especially after you've been talking for a little bit beforehand too.
I want to remind our audience that we do this show live, so you might hear a hiccup or a sneeze along the way. That's just part of what happens in real life. So before we get started, I want to ask you our icebreaker question. Are you ready for it?
Yeah, I think so.
Pineapple on pizza, yay or nay?
I'm going to say nay. I've never had it, so I'm going to stick with a no on that one. Yeah, it just doesn't seem like something I'd like. Yeah.
It's your South Jersey roots coming through right there, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, for sure. They may have it out here in California, but definitely not in South Jersey.
Zero chance, dude. Like, it's gotten to the point where people believe that I just hate pineapple. And I'm like, no, I really like pineapple. I just don't want it on my pizza. Like,
Yeah.
You can put it on just about anything else, but not on my pizza.
Yeah, I mean, grilled pineapple is great too, but yeah, I just don't want it on the pizza. I'm fine with that.
That's awesome. So, hey, let's jump into the conversation. Take me back to 2013. I did some research. Your website says that you had a health scare in 2013. If you don't mind sharing, what was the health scare and what made running the thing to do versus any other hobby or sport?
Yeah, so in 2013, I was diagnosed with bicuspid aortic valve and aortic aneurysm. Usually the aortic aneurysm comes along with a bicuspid aortic valve. So in a normal aortic valve, there's 3 leaflets in your aorta that open up and close, and mine only have 2, which in and of itself is just, not a big deal. But then, like I said, that aneurysm develops around it. And normally, surgeries generally, where they replace the aorta and the valve, is at 4.5 centimeters, I want to say, or 45 millimeters. And I was clocking in at 4.4 centimeters. So I was pretty close to open heart surgery. So immediately then it was, all right, we're going to monitor this every 3 months. And see how you do. But I'd immediately stop doing any heavy lifting. Couldn't lift anything over 10 pounds because if you have a sudden increase in blood pressure, that's where it's a excuse me, really a chance of dissection. So that's really what they were concerned about. So really the only thing I could do was light cardio. And then that's kind of where it reignited my passion for running. So I ran track and cross country in high school and stuff like that, but never really I was okay. I was never really that good at it. But it was really the only thing I could do. So, I really wasn't living the healthiest lifestyle. I wasn't eating well. But I had just had my son. I didn't have him. My wife had him. But my son was born. So I was like, you know what? I got to stick around for a while now. So I just kicked over a new leaf and just started running. And before before 2017, 2018, they told me I would never run more than a half marathon. That was kind of the cap, because there really wasn't any studies that was surrounding an aortic valve and an aortic aneurysm with endurance athletes. So they just capped it at like a half marathon. So I was like, all right, if I'm going to do a half marathon, I'm just going to keep doing a half marathon. So couldn't get my heart rate up over 180. So that's where it started, like a lot of those easy effort miles. And that was before like I really knew what I was doing. So I was just going out and running and just trying to start eating right and everything. And then that's kind of where it all started.
So let me ask you a question about the idea of running sort of being taken away from you, right? And then getting it back. Was it, I can't wait to get back to running because I did it in high school, or was it, well, this is the only thing I can do, and so you kind of were forced into it?
It really was like, this is the only thing I can do. So that's where I was like, all right, if I can run, then I'm going to run. I mean, honestly, in college, I just gained like 30 pounds. Like I would say probably 80 to 90% of the people who go to college, right? They have the freshman 15. I just doubled that.
Yeah.
And I was just sitting around drinking and lifting weights, and that was about it. So I really wasn't being very healthy. And I kind of kept that going into, when I got back and graduated. And, you feel like you're being healthy, just like hanging around doing that kind of stuff, but you're really not. So I was like, all right, this is what I can do. So I'm just going to do it to the fullest that I can do it. And then once I really got back into it, that's when you started falling in love with it over again.
So over those 5 years from 2013 to 2018, when you've been told that half marathon is the most you're going to do, are you, purposefully doing things to get to the half marathon distance immediately, or are you going the 5K, 10K, 15K half marathon route? Like, are you progressing through it, or are you going, I can get to the half marathon, that's the limit they've given me, so let's get right to that?
So I really just started out with running like a 10-mile loop in my house, like every day. And again, it was right before I knew what I was doing. So I was probably going out and running that a little bit too hard. As long as my heart rate wasn't up over 180 for any time, I would just stick to that. But I did a couple 5Ks and a couple 10Ks. And then in Philadelphia, they used to have called the Odyssey Run. That was a half marathon that they ran for like 3 or 4 years. And then I got to do the Philly half in 2017. So that's kind of really when I started really dialing into the half marathon distance. And then when I finished in 2017, the half marathon, I was like, man, I had two thoughts. I was like, I'm really glad that I don't have to do another half, because you finish right at the art museum steps. And I was like, man, I don't want to do that again. But then I was also like, saw all these other people just keep going. And I was like, man, I really would love to do that one day. So I was like, I'm going to come back here and I'm going to run the full marathon.
So did you go and talk to your doctors, or did you take the risk on your own and say, I'm going to go 13.2 miles tomorrow and see what happens?
So I just kept it at the 13.1, and then I just kept talking to my doctors. So initially they started with the every 3 months, and they kept clearing me, and they did a little bit better diagnostic imaging with some dye and found out it was like 4.3, which gave me another millimeter, which, hey, I'll take it. But really what was happening, it was becoming stable, the size of the aneurysm. So it wasn't growing, which helped out. So it just kept clearing me for more and more. As long as I wasn't getting my heart rate over 180 for like over a minute, they said that's really where I needed to be, which now I know is kind of like prime aerobic conditioning. I didn't know at the time. I was just doing prime aerobic conditioning the whole time.
So when do you decide that you're going to run a marathon through this process?
It was at that finish line in 2017 at the half marathon. I was like,
so you were determined to do it, but you needed your doctor's clearance, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
And so what Philly, did you race the Philly marathon as the first marathon then?
Yeah, 2018, I came back the next year and ran the Philly Marathon. They cleared it for me. And I had really good doctors at Thomas Jefferson University Hospital, like some of the top cardiac surgeons, thoracic surgeons, and cardiologists. So I met with them, like I say, every 3 months, every 6 months. And now I meet with them every year to 2 years, just because it's become stable.
Yeah. I presume there was some nervousness when you started running. What was the nervousness at the start line for the marathon? Because again, you've been running for 5 years. They've given you the clearance for 13.1, and now all of a sudden here you are lining up for 26.2.
One was always it's always, hey, am I going to be able to finish this? And then back then, being competitive was like, hey, I want to finish this in what I thought would be a respectable time. Now I know just finishing a marathon's impressive regardless of the time. But that time I was like, hey, I got to finish this in something that I could be proud of. And then that was the nervousness. There really wasn't anything in terms of I don't think I'm going to be able to take this. My heart's not going to be able to take this. That's always in the back of your mind. But it was like, hey, I can control this. Everybody said I'm good with it. So that's where I was like, you know what, let's just go do it, see what happens.
What's the feeling like when you cross that finish line?
My wife said she saw a spark kind of ignite in me, which was awesome to hear. And it was like, hey, I've done something that people said that I was never going to be able to do. So that one, I was like, you know what, this running thing is really cool. And you get to connect with a lot of people and do things that not everybody gets to do.
What's the confidence kick like at this point now, right? So I did something that people told me I couldn't do. There are people who are not doing it, and it is hard, period, end of story. So you do this really hard thing. What's the confidence boost? And do you take that confidence boost outside of running? Do you take that into your everyday life at that point as well?
So at that point, I think I was still kind of naive to running and understanding that, hey, this is a big thing. I kind of was like, hey, this is just everyday normal things. We get in our echo chambers and our social media, right? Like all our friends are runners and everybody's like, this is what we do. So it's not a big deal to go run a marathon on the weekend for some people. And that's what I saw. I was like, hey, everybody does it. And sometimes it takes people, like my wife or some other people in my family or friends, not everybody does these kind of things. You're kind of crazy. So, and then, running did give me a little bit of a confidence boost to bring that into, everyday life. Like I say, nobody's ever going to be able to put me what I've already put myself through.
Right.
So it's really given me really a lot of my own mental space in my head where nobody can kind of own that anymore. They used to be able to do that. Even after the marathon, people own space in my head. It wasn't until I found ultra running and trail running where I was like, oh, this is my space. Nobody owns it anymore.
What got you to ditch the road for the dirt?
It was actually, so I did my first 50K in Southern California when I moved out here in 2020. I never heard of any, I never heard of a 50K. I never heard of any ultras. Then I read David Goggins' book, his first one. I was like, oh man, there's things out there that are over a 50K. So I was like, you know what, let's start out with a 50K. And that one was the Orange Curtains in Cerritos. And again, I had no idea what I was doing. I just ran it like a marathon. I was drinking just Tailwind. I didn't take any in. I wasn't eating gels or anything like that. So I bonked hard towards the end, but I still came in I think it was third or fourth there because it's a smaller race. And
don't discount your finish, man.
Yeah,
I don't care.
Exactly. See, that's one of the things. But I was like, you know what? I was like, what's so hard about this ultra running stuff? This seems pretty easy. And then I did the Black Mountain 50K in San Diego, right outside of San Diego. And that has 5,000 feet of elevation gain. And my buddy lives in San Diego. I hadn't seen him in a while. I was like, you know what? why don't we get lunch after this race? I ran this last one in like 4 hours, 45 minutes. It's got elevation gain. Maybe I'll run it in like 5-6 hours. Course record's like 4:30 or something like that. Maybe I'll come close to that. I went out there and I got my butt kicked. It was like that brought me down to earth, and it brought me down to earth hard because it was hot. Didn't do any heat training, and I maybe did like a week of hills. Like I had no idea what I was doing, and it showed. And I think I did it in like 8 hours. It was a suck fest. It was brutal. And I was like, oh, this is what everybody's talking about. This is what's hard with it. The technical trail. I didn't even have trail shoes, I don't think. It's a technical trail up and down. People were destroying me, but that's what like ignited my love for ultra running. And that's where really I was like, all right, if I'm going to do this, I want to do it right. And that's kind of where I started my journey into coaching too, for myself, really. I was like, I got to learn about this because that sucked. And I'm sure other things are going to suck, but I want to put myself in the best position to not suck so much.
One of the things I love about hosting this show and the things that we get to do with Run Try Bike is hearing these stories, because they always bring back memories. I remember years ago, I was living in Dallas, Texas, and a friend of mine said to me, hey, we should try to break another friend of ours' half marathon time. Her half marathon time was like 1:31. My fastest at the time was 1:36. And I was like, yeah, like, sure, we can do that. And he says, well, the race is in like 2 or 3 weeks. Like, we haven't trained for anything like this, right? We're ultra runners, and we're going to try to run 1:31 or less in a half marathon. And after the first 2 miles, I'm on like a 6:50 pace. And I'm like, holy shit, we're going to do it, man. Like, yes. Right. And then everything starts falling apart.
Yeah.
Mile 9, the bus doesn't have any parts to it left, And it just cracks me up to hear your story, because I think part of what we go through as runners is these moments where in the moment they're horrendous, but they are such great teachers. They're such great lessons for us to take to the next level. And so you just mentioned how this race was sort of a catalyst to get into coaching. And you mentioned that you were doing it for yourself. So was the idea like, I'm going to get certified as a coach so I can put a better training plan together for myself, so I can learn about hydration, so I can learn about nutrition, and not think about coaching others? Is that how kind of it started then?
Yeah, that's how it really started. Just because I like learning things that I'm interested about, which is weird because in school, like in college anyway, it would be like, hey, this guy's studying stuff on purpose now. So I was like, yeah, let's go figure this stuff out. And it was like right when COVID hit. That's kind of where USA Track and Field had their first like USA Track and Field level 1 certification, where you didn't have to show up to a place. They did it over Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
So like, all right, if this is going to be one good thing that comes out of it. So I got my level 1 certification, but there was nothing about ultra running in it. So they didn't have any of that. And then I was listening to another podcast, and the guy on there was a coach, and he talked about UESCA. So I looked that up, and it's a really great course. So now I'm UESCA running certified and ultra running certified. Both are great, very science-based, study-based. It's great. And I just use that to put a better training plan together for myself. I started helping out friends and family here and there, mainly if they wanted to get into running or run a new distance that they hadn't run before. But I felt like I wasn't giving them enough time to be able to charge them anything. So I would just do it for free or ask them for, I don't know, like $50, $60 or something for a training plan and stuff. Because I was working a full-time job, like in corporate America, where I was putting in like, anywhere between 50 and 60 hour weeks. So I was like, you know what, I'll just do this kind of on the side for fun. But mostly it was just to make sure that I kind of put myself in the best position to be able to compete, where I felt better prepared showing up to a race.
So when you go out to that first race after getting UESCA certified, what was the confidence level like? Were you like, yeah, this is the stuff that I've been studying and reading, and I've put together a training plan that I executed, and now I have a race plan that I know that I can execute. Is that kind of how the process went for you?
It was, but I'm never like, I always try to go into every race like humbly, because every distance is tough. Like you said, even look, 5Ks suck. They're horrible.
Suck.
Yeah, I coach a group through Fleet Feet Laguna Niguel where we do a group of like 4 or 5Ks. It's called the Covathlon in Newport Beach. It's 4 or 5Ks. Like you have Thursday night, it's a 5K, and then the next week it's another one, and then there's a 2-week break, and then there's 2 more. Those Thursday night runs, they suck. They're horrible. So I try to go in and just respect every distance, but I always take the leap. I kind of worked that way through. I don't think you have to, but it helps you kind of prepare a little bit mentally. I went from like the 50K, and then I did a self-supported, or like my wife supported me and my kids, 100K to raise money for the Robin Ames Foundation and his widow. I did 100K just around San Clemente. I think that was like kind of right after COVID. And again, even with all that, I still came out of it. I wasn't eating enough, didn't hydrate enough. So I was really beat up. And then, yeah, I just try to go in. And I think each race distance that I go into, I'm always like a little bit naive heading into it, but I try to be humble about it. Because right after that 100K, I did the jackpot 24-hour ultra. Yep. And then that one was brutal too, because it was like, it's on the road. It's like somewhat gravel, and then mostly like just a loop course.
I've run it.
But it was like 90, 95 degrees because it's in Vegas.
Yeah. I've run the jackpot ultras, and that is a very sneaky, hard course because there is so much road to it, and there are two, they're not steep, but they're just long climbs in this 2-mile loop, right? And you're like, it's a 2-mile loop, man, and then
just do it whatever. Yeah. Do this all day. And then you have to do it all day. And you're like, I don't know if I could do it all day. But yeah, and it was like 50-mile-an-hour winds. So nothing really prepares you for race day. So I think if you kind of go into it, it's okay to be naive, but as long as you go into it humbly and respect every distance, that's where I see most athletes have problems if they think it's not going to be a big deal.
Yeah.
Because any distance is a big deal. So, and then I just, always went with whatever, saw what worked, saw what didn't work, and then just kept tinkering. I heard one of the PTs out here, he said, runners are tinkerers. We always like look around, see what works, what doesn't work. And then what's always fun is what works in one race doesn't work in the other. And you're like, well, what the heck just happened?
That's the thing. Like, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this. Like, when people ask me about PRs and certain races, I'm like, I could give you all the information you are looking for, but it's pointless because, and the example I give them is I raced Rocky Raccoon 100 5 times, and every one of those 5 times was completely different than the other 5 times, right? Like there was no one race that was exactly the same as the other. You had hurricanes that blew through one year before the event. You had mud one year. You had heat one year. They had to change the course a couple of times. Like it's under the umbrella Rocky Raccoon 100, but the actual race in and of itself is completely different. So when you decide to go back to do a particular race, if you do go back to do a particular race, what do you try to keep as far as, I need to train to do this and I need to prepare for this? And what do you like? I need to get rid of that because who knows if that's going to happen again in a generic sense.
Yeah. So mostly like if nutrition works, I stick with that. And then hydration. And then like foot care is huge, especially on the trail. So what works for my feet, I keep that most of the time. Anything else, like I'm okay with tossing to the side. But like shoes, I'll generally keep the same shoes. I was reluctant to try different shoes until I started working at Fleet Feet in Laguna Niguel. And I'm like, all right, I'll try different shoes now, because I was wearing trail shoes on my road marathons when I started running trails, because I was like, these work. I don't care if they have lugs or not. I'm going to wear them all the time. But yeah, and strategies. And I think finding out over time, really, what I really like start focusing on more is effort instead of pace. That's kind of what I find really works. And it's hard for some athletes to kind of understand. But you can surprise yourself if you're really just focusing on effort instead of pace.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in RPE. Like that's
Yeah.
what I focus on. And I also, with my own training plan, is focusing on time versus miles. And the reason why I do that, and I'd love for you to chime in, is, Tuesday morning you wake up, you might feel spry, and you might be able to run, 6 miles, 7 miles in 45 minutes. And on, Wednesday you wake up and you feel like total garbage because you didn't sleep well, food you ate or whatever. And you go out and you run your 45 miles, but you might only get 4 or 5 miles in because it just doesn't, it's not right. You don't feel right. And so I always go by time when it comes to training for that reason, because you don't know how you're going to feel that day. What are your thoughts and takeaways on training on time versus mileage?
Yeah, most of my training plans that I put together for my athletes now are really around time. Mostly because then it's easier for them to plan. If you say all right, you're going to go run 15 miles. It's like, well, how long is that going to take me if I'm running this pace? But if you say go out there for 3 hours, then they know they're going to have to be out there for 3 hours.
Yeah.
And I also find that it slows a lot of my faster athletes down, in terms of it puts them in that like aerobic effort area that they need to be, instead of trying to run as fast, that 6 miles as fast as they can.
Why are we like that? Like, why are runners like that? Like, hey, here's a 6 mile plan. I got it. I'm going to finish this thing in 35 minutes. But if I told you to run for 45 minutes, you might still get 6 miles. Like, why are we like that?
It's I think it's just from old school spreadsheets. You're just looking back at what you did before, and then now Strava and Garmin and Chorus makes it so easy to look at your previous segments and be like, hey, I'm going to beat that, or I'm going to beat the guy who just did that. So I try not to look at any of that and just go run my training that I need to.
You bring up a good point about Strava and social media, essentially. Like, when you're for yourself, how do you remove the conversation on social media from your own training plan? Because you can open up any app and inevitably there's going to be somebody on there who posts that they had a great run and they did a set of PR. And it doesn't even matter if they're within an earshot of your pace, right? You see that they've done and they've set a PR and you're like, well, I've got to do it too.
Yeah.
And so how do you work on that balance between, I love social media, I can connect with people, we have a running community, and I've got to avoid social media because I need to just go run my training run or my race my way?
Yeah, it's so easy nowadays, and especially for new runners. And that's kind of what I did when I first got on like Instagram, was just fall into that comparison trap. But a really true believer that comparison is the thief of all joy. You could finish a 100-mile race and you did it in 28 hours, and then the winner's doing it at 15. You're like, why can't I get to 15? You just ran 100 miles, right? It just takes that, like, that's your buckle. That was your race. And then you should be happy about it. So why are you comparing yourself to somebody else? Because you're not that person. So it took me a little bit of time, but then, I'll look at people's training plans and I'll take away things that work for me. But I'm like, I try to shut out all that other noise that is outside of that. But yeah, it's really hard to shy away from that comparison trap. But I really don't look. The only thing I look at is local legends, because I'll run a hill like 50 times to get a local legend, but I'm not going to run a segment faster than I need to.
It's awesome. Strava is one of those platforms. If you allow it, to get into your head, it will absolutely get in your head. Like I remember, this is ages ago, probably 10 years ago, seeing a runner would post and the title would be easy run, easy, right? And you click on the information and the data that shows up and everything is in zone 4 or 5. And I'm like, that is not an easy run by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah.
Either A, you haven't set your zones correctly, which happens, or B, you're running to the Strava account so that somebody will be giving you kudos, which is going to do damage to yourself in the long run because there's potential for burnout, injury, and so many other things. And I think that's part of the conversation we're having, which is if you can figure out a way to block out the noise and remove the comparison as much as possible, it's not easy. Running and social media become far more community driven than they do competition driven.
Yeah. And that's what I try to focus on as a community, because it's crazy the amount of people that you get to meet doing the things that we do, even at like the LA Marathon and New York City marathons. Like there's 40,000 people, 55,000 people there. And you're like, oh, hey, I ran that too. So it's really cool being able to connect, or like see people in your neighborhood. You're like, hey, you live like down the street from me. Like, should we go for a run together? Yeah, let's go. Like that's always the cool stuff. So I try to keep that in perspective instead of I should be doing these types of workouts or do this. And that's what I find with a lot of my athletes. They're like, oh, I want to get faster. Like, well, why do you want to get faster? Are you trying to PR, or is it, like you said, just looking for kudos, or like, is fast in your repertoire? Like, do you have to go faster? Like, I think that's just, everybody wants to go get faster instead of being more efficient aerobically. And that's where all the gains come from.
100%. I think the other thing too is in today's world where I can click a button, I can have a package at my front door in 5 minutes. It's, well, I put on running shoes, I should be able to win this marathon, tomorrow, right? Like this should happen easily. Like everything else is so easy in the world today. And I think there's a learning curve that happens there with people. And in some cases deters people from continuing on because it turns out that it is work. It turns out that it is hard. Like, I've been doing this stuff for 18 years now. And it's easier because I'm more efficient. It's not easier, right?
Yeah.
Like I understand how to structure my training plan. I understand how much time things are going to take, and I can do that in that way. It's still hard to get out there and run the miles and put in the hill repeats and everything else. Like that stuff is still hard. I'm still panting. I'm still sweating. Like I can't wait to lay on the floor in the summer when it's, 100 degrees out. Like that stuff is still hard no matter what.
Yeah.
But I do think that people lose sight of the fact that this stuff takes work. Like you started in 2013, you're, 10 plus years into this. And I guarantee you that there are things that you're like, I could still improve at X or I can improve at Y.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, you can improve every day. You just try to get a little bit better each day. And it's also tough to compare yourself to what you were 5 or 6 years ago.
Without a doubt.
Sometimes it's just you're just not going to get there. But that's not to say you won't be able to. It's just they're just different days and different years and different stress levels and stuff like that.
Yep.
But yeah, that's what I do like, having the data at your fingertips, but I try not to get lost in it. And that's kind of, like you said, that's why I coach mostly by RPE, because then like heart rate can be like discouraging for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Some people's heart rate jump up to like 140 getting up and going for a walk.
Right.
So they're going to be walking most of the time. But if you go by RPE and you're really honest with yourself and honest with your coach, I feel like that's a really good way to develop that aerobic capacity that you need. I tell a lot of my athletes, like, it takes a while, but the benefit far outweighs trying to add speed or, threshold too early, because you're going to have minimal gains from that. But if you work on your aerobic engine consistently and dedicated, then you can always pivot and throw in threshold and speed later on. And then that's where you're going to get your like sustained gains.
You unintentionally opened up Pandora's box in a sense. So data, right? Like nowadays, You can get data from Garmin or Coros. You can get data from Training Peaks. You can get data from Strava. Whoop or Aura rings. I mean, there's Amazfit has a product out now. And I know in the last couple of days, there's the introduction of a shoe that is somehow going to be measuring power or effort or something to that effect. And it makes me wonder, like, where is the point of diminishing returns on data? Like for yourself, you said you look at the data, but you don't get lost in the data.
Mm-hmm.
At what point would you consider yourself lost in the data when you're like, okay, I need to stop this because I'm looking at stuff that really doesn't matter at this point?
I mean, I think if you're looking at it, I would say like every day, right? And you're just like going in and reviewing every run every day and looking at every single, like, all right, what's my cadence? What zones was I in? How long did I spend climbing? Things like that. But if you look at it, the way I try to look at it too, it's like if you look at the stock market every day, it's crazy. You can lose your mind. But if you look at it and you look at trends, that's where it can be insightful. So, if your resting heart rate is going down, then you're like, okay, looks like my aerobic capacity is kind of increasing. Then you can kind of make correlations that way. Or if it's on the other way, if it's on the upswing, what am I doing? Am I not getting enough sleep? Things like that. Or like that, what is it, HRV status? I know that comes up like constantly, changing your HRV status. You're like, I just had a poor sleep last night. Take it easy. But I really think if you look at trends, that's where you won't get lost in it. But if you're in it every single day, like, analyzing your entire workout, like, this is the calories that I burned out. This is the power that I had. So it's like, I try to be a little bit cerebral with running, but then a lot by gut, because your gut really knows what's going on for the most part.
And that's where RP comes into play big time, right? You start understanding your perceived exertion and what what I have found over time is the RPE and the paces that you've been trying to analyze all come to a point, right? Like, you're like, okay, if I'm running at an RPE of 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever the number is, that equates to a 9-minute mile. And all of a sudden, all of the math starts to work itself out because everything comes to a point where you look at that stuff. We're running out of time here, but I do want you mentioned the Robert Ames Foundation. Is that correct?
Yeah, Robin Ames Foundation.
Can you give us a little bit more of information on that? We'll put this in the show notes as well. What is it, and why are you a part of it?
Yeah, so in 2020, one of my good friends from college, from West Virginia University, he was riding his bike on the way home from work, and he got hit by a car by a distracted driver. And ultimately lost his life due to an accident that was just pure negligence and could have been totally avoidable. And he left behind 2 daughters and a wife, and sister and brother, mother and father, and all his friends. So it impacts, the scope of that is really impactful. So what we try to do, it's a grassroots foundation. We try to bring about education around distracted driving, as well as raise money to put distracted driving programs together, particularly in the state of West Virginia. We focus on legislation to make penalties a little bit harsher for distracted driving. And then we also give back to the community. We give back, this year we gave a $5,000 grant to an engineering student at West Virginia, because that's what Robin and I were both in mechanical engineering. So we gave $5,000 back for a research grant for one of the mechanical engineering students at West Virginia. And then we also host a race once a year, and this year it's on October 11th. It's called the Robin Ames Foundation Trail Series. It's a RAF Trail Series. It's a 50K, 25K, 10K, 5K on a really awesome trail in Cooper's Rock State Park, State Forest. It's not a park. But yeah, it's a real great event. We try to bring everybody together, and just because Robin was such a He had such a zest for life. So we try to focus on the positives and bring community together. He was a big community builder. So we wanted to bring community together as along with showing the dangers of distracted driving.
For those who are watching live or will listen later, where can they go to get more information about the event?
So they can go to ramesfoundation.org. It's RAMES foundation.org. And we're on Run Sign Up. You could just look for RAF Trail Series.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Thanks for sharing that. And where can people find you?
So I'm on Instagram. It's so_Cal_runner. So it's SoCal Runner. Also on Strava. I'm public. Like I said, I'm an open book. You can look at all my data as much as I don't. And then SoCalRunnerCoaching.com. So that's my website.
Awesome. Appreciate your time. Before we let you go, though, we have our rapid fire food questions, which, again, I think I told you in the green room. I have no idea why we continue to call it rapid fire food questions, but so take your time in answering them. Think about them deeply if you need to. You ready?
Yeah.
Oreos. When it comes to Oreos, are you an OG fan? Do you like the double stuff better? Do you like the new thins or the new Cakesters?
Oh, I like one that's not mentioned. It's the mega stuffed.
Oh, the mega stuff.
Yeah. So it's like in between Cakester and double stuffed.
I got to be honest with you. The Cakester thing, just call it a ding dong or, the round devil's dog. Like, let's be honest here. You didn't reinvent something here.
Yeah. That's my mega stuffed Oreos is my post race celebration, no matter what the race is. I usually, and if it's, let's be honest, if it's a marathon, I'm going to eat the whole box. I generally eat the whole box of mega stuffed Oreos. It's a scene.
How does Steve eat a mega stuffed Oreo? Are you a spinner and scraper? Or you put the whole thing in your mouth? Are you take a bite at a time? How do you eat them?
I'll usually take one and put that whole one in my mouth and then take two more and then open them up, give the flats with no cream to my wife because she likes those, and then make a double mega stuffed Oreo out of it. It's a really scientific approach.
I see that. The mechanical engineering degree coming through.
Yeah. I need them to make a double mega stuffed. Yeah.
WVU would be so proud of the education.
Exactly. Yeah. No waste at all.
And no dunking from what I've gathered.
Nope. Yeah, no dunking.
Does cookies and cream ice cream enter into the conversation for you based on the fact that you love the mega stuff Oreo?
If they could throw a couple more cups of Oreos in it, I'd be all about it for sure.
I love these absurd questions.
Yeah.
You find out so much about people through their food preferences. It's fantastic.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Licorice, red or black, or neither?
I'll go red.
Twizzlers or red vines?
I was on the East Coast, so we never had red vines. It was always Twizzlers.
There's always Twizzlers. And do you cut or bite the ends off so you have a straw for your Coke?
I used to, but now I just eat it on the run.
Are Peeps we're coming up on Easter, so this is a perfectly timed question. Are Peeps a real candy, or are they just these ridiculous contraptions covered in gold glitter?
I think they're the ridiculous contraptions on gold glitter. I think like the only time I'll eat a Peep is if it's been stale for a while.
What is with you people? You're like the 100th person that said that. They're like, and here's my reaction. And I've eaten a stale Peep. I've actually had somebody, Adina O'Neill, mail one to me from Boston and I to Seattle, and it was terrible. And my thinking has always been this: you want me to take something bad, make it worse, and it's supposed to be better.
Yeah, I guess so. I think it's a good way to look at it, but it's bad either way. But I guess it's like adds to the chew factor, so you get to enjoy the badness a little bit more.
Is it like math? A negative times a negative is a positive?
Yeah, I think so.
Candy corn. Is candy corn a real candy, or is it just earwax coated in sugar?
I think it's earwax coated in sugar. I'm not a fan of that. Yeah.
So far, we're hitting it out of the ballpark, dude. You don't want pineapple on pizza. You hate Peeps, and candy corn is out, and Twizzlers are in. We're batting 1,000. Creamy or crunchy peanut butter?
Creamy peanut butter.
How do you make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? Do you put peanut butter on one slice of the bread and jelly on the other slice and then smash them together? or do you put peanut butter on one slice of the bread, jelly on top of that, and then slat the other slice of bread over the top?
I put 2 pieces of bread, peanut butter, and then jelly in the middle.
Oh, double peanut butter.
So there's no leakage coming out because the peanut butter acts as like a barrier.
I'm telling you, the engineering degree coming to work.
That's the only time I get to use it.
How do you, when you've made the peanut butter and jelly sandwich, do you just go right in and eat it, or do you cut it into 2 triangles, 2 rectangles, 4 squares, or 4 triangles?
I get pretty lazy, so I just go right for it.
The questions on peanut butter and jelly sandwich eating never end, dude. So when you go right in, do you go into the middle, or do you act like a typewriter and just go across and then go across?
Middle first and then corners, and then middle first and then corners.
I'm going to have to write a book.
All the peanut butter and jelly in my mustache.
Is a hot dog a sandwich or a taco?
Man, that's a tough one. Because I don't think it's a sandwich because you got to go taco with it, I think. Yeah, I'll go taco with it.
No, you got to go sandwich because it's bread. Like a taco's on a tortilla.
Well, I've had tacos, or if I had hot dogs on tortillas too.
Yeah, so have I.
Yeah. You're like, oh, crap, I don't have any bread.
The greatest hot dog, and you might know this, is served at the top of Mingus during Cocodona at that aid station. It is the greatest hot dog. It may taste like shit on any normal day, but when you get up there, like I had my crew that had to put crushed potato chips, mustard, the hot dog, and then mustard and crushed potato chips on top.
Oh, man.
Oh,
that sounds gross anywhere else, but there, that sounds fantastic.
It was fantastic. Mingus Mountain, and I eat vegan, so I was eating the vegan hot dogs, and they tasted like,
oh man,
they were so good. All right, I'm getting into the memory banks here.
Yeah, for sure.
Red velvet cake. Is red velvet a real flavor, or is it just chocolate cake dressed up to go to the prom?
I think it's chocolate cake dressed up to go to the prom because I'm again East Coast. That's like a southeastern thing for me.
Yeah, same.
Never really had it. Yeah.
And I get it. Look, don't send in your hate mail about red velvet being a real flavor. I got it. Alkalized cocoa and yada, yada, yada. But when you go to like a grocery store and it's in the display case, all they did was add red food dye to that. Like you're paying $12 for a $6 slice of cake.
Yeah.
Favorite flavor of ice cream is?
It goes like Rocky Road or mint chocolate chip.
Oh, mint chocolate chip for sure. Without that. Favorite candy bar?
Snickers.
Yes, good call.
Gotta go Snickers.
But the 100-gram bar is right up there too.
Yeah, it's pretty close.
Chocolate chip cookie or oatmeal raisin cookie?
Oh, chocolate chip all day.
But do you like the Chips Ahoy, which are like little hockey pucks, or does it have to be like fresh baked out of the oven?
It's got to be fresh baked out of the oven because that reminds me of my grandma. She would make chocolate chip cookies, and every batch would be completely different because she forgot the recipe. Some would be really flat, and some would be really puffy, and you're like, oh, you don't know what you're going to get. So it's great.
So sticking on the grandma conversation, every grandparent has a bowl of candy. There's always a butterscotch. There's always a hard candy that has strawberry filled, and it's got like the strawberry wrapper. And then there's the swirly mint. Which one of the three are you grabbing out of grandma's candy bowl?
Always go for the strawberry one first.
I'm a butterscotch guy.
Butterscotch was always last. Strawberry, mint, and then the butterscotch.
I will say this, though. When you're out on the trail and you're running, put this in your coaching plans for your athletes. Like, always have a handful of mints with you, because once you pop that in during a rough time, that like fresh breath, it wakens you up, man. It brings you back to life.
That's such a good idea. I tell them to bring, and I usually do, gum. I'll chew gum sometimes. Yeah, it's great.
Pop-Tarts, frosted or unfrosted?
Frosted.
Favorite flavor is?
Cinnamon and brown sugar. That one.
Nice.
Yeah. Gotta go. And then you eat the outside first, and then you go to the frosting.
Tuna, egg, or potato salad? Which one are you bringing to the cookout?
Tuna salad. With
interesting.
Yeah, with like the elbow macaroni.
Yeah. All right. You can only eat sweet or savory for the rest of your life. Which are you going with?
I gotta go savory. I can't do sweet all the time.
Yes. Too many choices under the savory
Yeah.
umbrella.
Oh yeah.
Last one for you. A tray of brownies has come out of the oven. It's sat on the counter long enough for it to get cool enough. Are you going to the corner edge? Are you going to the edge middle? Or are you going straight into the middle for the ooey gooey?
I go corner edge.
It's such a great place. You can hold it.
Got it.
You get the
Yeah.
ooey gooey as well.
Yeah. And then you just go into the corners later. It's great.
As an East Coaster, are you a Sicilian pizza kind of guy?
I do like them, but I'm a fan of thin slices.
Yeah, you got to get New York style pizzeria for sure.
Yeah.
Pizza for sure.
Absolutely.
Steve, thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate your time. I appreciate you wading through our rapid fire, completely absurd food questions as well. All of ways to get in touch with Steve will be in our show notes, and you can visit runtrimag.com to get articles written by Steve about coaching. And if you're interested, you can obviously get to him and contact him through our website as well. Steve, have a great night. Appreciate your time, man.
Yeah. Thank you. Have a good one.